In the early 1990s, the high-end kitchen retailer Williams-Sonoma had a problem. They had introduced a new product to their shelves, an automatic bread maker. It was a novel machine for the time. It promised fresh, warm, homemade bread with the push of a single button. The price was $275. And nobody bought it. Consumers were confused. They had no frame of reference. Was $275 a good price? Was it expensive? Was it cheap? They didn't know. They didn't need a bread maker, and they certainly didn't want to risk nearly $300 on a gadget they didn't understand. The executives at Williams-Sonoma were desperate. They called in a marketing research firm. They expected the consultants to tell them to lower the price. Maybe drop it to $150. Maybe run a discount coupon. But the consultants gave them advice that seemed insane. They said, "Do not lower the price. Lower the price. In fact, we want you to manufacture a second bread maker. Make it slightly bigger. Make it slightly better. And price it." At $429, Williams-Sonoma listened. They put the $429 machine right next to the $275 machine. And suddenly, something strange happened. The $429 machine didn't sell very well. But sales of the original $275 machine exploded. They doubled. Then they tripled. Why? Because the $275 machine was no longer an expensive gadget. It was now a steal. Compared to the $429 model, the $275 model looked like a bargain. The product hadn't changed. The utility hadn't changed. The only thing that changed was the invisible psychological ruler the customers were using to measure value. This is not a story about bread. This is a story about the glitch in your brain that costs you thousands of dollars every single year. This phenomenon is called anchoring bias. It is one of the most robust, powerful, and terrifying flaws in the human operating system. It dictates that the first number you see, the anchor, will actively drag your perception of value toward it, regardless of whether that number is relevant, fair, or even real. It is the reason why a 50 bottle of wine feels cheap on a menu that lists a 200 bottle at the top. It is the reason why you feel good about buying a shirt on sale for $60, simply because the tag says originally $120, even if that shirt was never actually sold for $120. But here is the deeper mystery. We like to believe we are rational agents. We like to think that when we look at a product, whether it's a house, a software subscription, or a cup of coffee, we are calculating its intrinsic value. We think we are judging the cost of materials, the labor, and the utility. We aren't. We are incapable of judging value in isolation. We can only judge value in comparison. So, the question we are answering today is this. If your brain cannot determine the true value of anything on its own, who is deciding what you pay? And more importantly, how are the world's smartest companies manipulating that decision before you even walk into the store? Today, we are unlocking the strategy of anchoring. We are going to break down the neuroscience behind it, how Steve Jobs used it to pull off the greatest pricing trick in tech history, and how you can use this same weapon to negotiate your next salary. To understand how this works, we have to go back to 1974. Two psychologists, Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman, conducted an experiment that would change economics forever. They gathered a group of participants and asked them a very difficult, obscure trivia question. What percentage of the United Nations is made up of African nations? Now, most people in 1974 didn't know the answer. They had to guess. But before they guessed, Tversky and Kahneman had them spin a wheel of fortune. The participants watched the wheel spin and land on a number. Here was the trick. The wheel was rigged. It would only stop on two numbers, either 10 or 65. After the wheel stopped, the researchers asked the participants, "Is the percentage of African nations higher or lower than the number you just spun? And then, what is your best estimate of the actual percentage?" Logic dictates that the number on a roulette wheel has absolutely nothing to do with geopolitics. It is a random number. It is noise. A rational human brain should discard it immediately. But that is not what happened. The group that saw the wheel land on 10 guessed, on average, that 25 of the UN was African nations. The group that saw the wheel land on 65 guessed, on average, that 45 of the UN was African nations. Think about that. A completely random, irrelevant number floated into their short-term memory, and it magnetized their judgment. It pulled their estimates toward it. The people who saw 10 were anchored low. The people who saw 65 were anchored high. This is the scary part. The participants insisted the wheel didn't influence them. They believed they were making an independent, educated guess. This is the fundamental rule of anchoring. The initial number sets the stage. Once an anchor is dropped, your brain does not look for the truth. It looks for adjustments from the anchor. And here is the catch. We are lazy. Our brains are energy efficient. We rarely adjust enough. If the anchor is high, we adjust down, but we stop adjusting too early, leaving us with a final price that is still far too high. Now, let's see how a genius used this glitch to make billions. The date is January 27, 2010. Steve Jobs is on stage in San Francisco. He is about to launch the iPad. This was a risky product. The press had been speculating for months. Analysts were nervous. They thought it would be just a big iPhone. But the biggest speculation was about the price. Most tech pundits predicted the iPad would cost around $1,000. Laptops cost $1,000. This was a computer. So $1,000 seemed fair. Jobs knew this, and he decided to use it. About an hour into the presentation, Jobs starts talking about pricing. He says, "What should we price it at?" He acknowledges the rumors. He says, "If you listen to the pundits, we're going to price it at under $1,000, which is code for 999. And then, on the giant screen behind him, a massive, bold number appears. 999, Jobs leaves it there. He keeps talking. For 60 full seconds, that 999 is burning into the retinas of the audience. It is burning into the minds of the journalists. The audience is looking at that number, and they are accepting it. They are thinking, okay, 999. That's expensive, but it's Apple. It's high-tech. I guess that's the price. The anchor has been set. The context is established. The value of an iPad is $1,000. And then, Jobs speaks again. I am thrilled to announce to you that the iPad pricing starts not at $999, but at just $499. The crowd went wild. The press went wild. Why? If Jobs had just walked out and said, "The iPad is $499, people would have scrutinized it. $500 for a big phone without a keyboard. That's a lot of money. But because he showed them $999 first, $499 didn't feel like a price. It felt like a gift. It felt like a saving of $500. Jobs manipulated the reference point. He created a fictional loss, $999, so that the real price, $499, felt like a gain. This is the price anchor in its purest form. Now, let's look at a more subtle variation. This is the one you will see every time you go to the movies or look at a SaaS pricing page. It's called the Decoy Effect or asymmetric dominance. Let's go to the movies. Imagine you are standing in line for popcorn. You see two options. 1. Small popcorn. 2. Large popcorn. 7. Most people look at this and think, $7 is a ripoff. I don't need that much corn. I'll take the small. The theater loses money on this transaction because the profit margin on the large size is massive. They need you to buy the large. So, how do they force you to buy the large without removing the small? They add a third option. The anchor. The decoy. They introduce a medium popcorn for 6.5. Now look at the choices. Small, 3 medium, 6.5 large, 7 something happens in your brain. You look at the medium and compare it to the large. Wait, you think, the medium is 6.5. For just 50 cents more, I can get the huge bucket. That's an amazing deal. I'd be stupid not to take the large. The medium popcorn does not exist to be sold. It exists solely to make the large look like a bargain. It anchors the price so high that the leap to the top tier feels insignificant. This was famously proven by Dan Ariely, a behavioral economist, regarding the Economist magazine subscriptions. Ariely noticed the Economist offered 3 subscriptions. 1. Web only, 59.2. Print only, 125.3. Web plus print, 125. Look at option 2 and 3. They are the same price. One offers less than the other. Option 2 is the print only for 125. Option 3 is print and web for the same price. Option 2 is useless. It is the useless bread maker. It is the medium popcorn. Ariely tested this on MIT students. When all 3 options were present, 84 of students chose the expensive combo deal, 125. But when he removed the useless middle option, the preference flipped. 68 of students chose the cheap web-only option, 59. By adding a decoy that was clearly worse than the premium option, The Economist made the premium option look like the only rational choice. They tricked the smartest students in the world into paying double, simply by adding a bad option to the list. So far, we have looked at how companies use this against you. But how can you use this to your advantage? The most powerful application of anchoring bias in your personal life is salary negotiation. Conventional wisdom says, never say the first number. Let them make an offer. Research suggests this is wrong. A study by Ames and Mason found that whoever drops the first number sets the anchor for the entire conversation. If you wait for the employer to offer, and they offer low, you are now fighting an uphill battle against their anchor. But you have to be careful. If you give a number that is too high, you look crazy. The strategy is called the bolstering range. Let's say you want a salary of 100,000. Do not ask for 100,000. Do not ask for between 90,000 and 100,000. If you do that, they will give you 90,000. Instead, you set a bolstering range where your desired number is the floor. You say, based on my research and the responsibilities of this role, I'm looking for something in the range of 100, 0 to 120. 0, here is what happens psychologically. 1. You have anchored the conversation high. The employer's brain is now adjusting from 120,000 down, rather than from 80,000 up. 2. By offering a range, you seem flexible and reasonable, not demanding. 3. Most importantly, because 100,000 is the lowest number in your range, it suddenly seems cheap to the employer compared to the 120,000 you just mentioned. You have used the Williams-Sonoma bread maker tactic on your own salary. You made your target number look like the bargain. So what is the secret? The secret is that price is a hallucination. We tend to think of price as a measurement of mass or distance. A kilogram is a kilogram. A mile is a mile. These are objective facts. But a dollar is not a dollar. A dollar is a feeling. The aha moment is realizing that you never actually evaluate a price. You only evaluate the context of the price. Steve Jobs didn't sell the iPad for $499. He sold the relief of not paying $999. Williams-Sonoma didn't sell a $275 bread maker. They sold a discount compared to the $429 model. The companies that win are not the ones with the lowest prices. They are the ones who control the anchor. They are the ones who get to place the first number on the whiteboard of your mind. Once you see the anchor, you cannot unsee it. You are trapped in their frame. Unless you know it's there. This strategy is brilliant because it exploits our brain's need for comparison. We are desperate for a benchmark. If you don't provide one, the customer will find their own, and it might be lower than you want. If you are a business owner, never present a price in isolation. Always provide a reference point. Create a premium tier that exists just to make your standard tier look like a no-brainer. If you are a consumer, you must learn to spot the anchor. When you see a was 100, now 50 sticker, ignore the 100. It is a ghost. It is a fiction designed to make you spend the 50. Cover the anchor with your thumb. Look at the price alone. Is it worth it? By understanding anchoring, you stop letting others dictate your perception of value. You take back control of the negotiation. If you learned something new today, and you want to inoculate your brain against these marketing psyops, hit the like button. It helps the algorithm find other intellectually curious people like you. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. We are building a library of the world's most powerful business strategies, and you don't want to miss the next one. And let us know in the comments, what is the most ridiculous anchor price you've ever seen? Was it a car dealership, a wedding venue, or maybe a wine list? I want to hear your stories. We are Insider's Knowledge, and this is Strategy Unlocked.